I live my life, one day at a time. A good portion of those days are uneventful, always falling into the same routine. I wake up, walk to work, walk home, and then bum around until I go to bed. Sometimes I'll hang with my few friends. Other times I'll just play video games or watch My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Every so often, something new and interesting happens. I meet an old friend. I find $1 on the ground, or I get chased by a stray dog. Living in a dying city isn't very fun or interesting. This city was once full of life and color, but now most of the houses are sagging, the businesses sit empty and abandoned, and several open fields lay barren of the once great factories that helped drive the economy. I have never seen this city during those times in person, but I have seen pictures. My mother and father lived happy, and they could only wish the same for me growing up. Sadly, I cannot say that I achieved that wish of theirs. I've fallen into the same dull routine. Wake, work, sleep, repeat. I do have some moments of bliss, but the daily struggles I go through outweigh the small moments of joy I have. My Little Pony has helped, but still just another thing to give my hopes up on. Every time I see the show or one of the ponies on a fan site, I recoil a bit at the bright colors, the joyful faces of the ponies, and the peaceful scenery of their world. It's so hard to look at the beautiful world, having it so close to my grasp. I reach out to touch its warm colors and bright, smiling faces of the ponies, only to be stopped by my computer screen. I snap back to reality. It gets to the point where I will simply shut down my computer and walk away. I do that a lot, especially after my parents' death. I go for a walk. When I feel sad, I walk. When I feel tired, I walk. When I feel like walking, I walk. Walking has become my second life in a sense. I spend at least half my day outside the crumbling sidewalks in decaying suburbs. I've seen people come and go. I've seen buildings torn down, burned up. There's so much graffiti on its walls that its original color is unrecognizable. I very rarely pass by any other people on my strolls. Most people don't like to look at their once beautiful city, their homes, or former businesses. I don't blame them. In fact, I envy them. They saw this place with their own two eyes, seeing the buildings still standing and tall and proud, lawns freshly cut, the paved roads, the sidewalks still intact. The only thing I've ever seen that even comes close is my mother's paintings, each of them colorful scenes of the concrete world. She started painting once everything crumbled beneath her feet, making the sad scene before her look beautiful. Her masterpiece is of an open field that yielded a parking garage. Over it, she drew an amazing rainbow. My favorite picture. I guess that is part of the reason why I like Rainbow Dash the most out of all the other ponies. Her colors, the amazing sonic rain boom, all remind me of that picture. There have been times where I wished I had my own Rainbow Dash, or more realistically, a plushie of her, to curl up in bed with. I've made an old Simba into a temporary replacement, until I am able to save enough money for one. It helps, in a way. Like holding it close will heal my wounds, my pain, and my sorrow. My feet, after countless hours of walking my old shoes, pulsate under the sheet, and all the while, I hold that stuffed animal harder than a mother protecting her child. It's the only thing I can look at and feel true joy, even if it isn't physically the Rainbow Dash I want. It will have to do. Today, as usual, I walked to work. It was the same, just a different day. Watching the same people enter the store, grab their merchandise and pay, then walk out with their bags in tow. My shift ended after several hours of this. I clocked out and started walking home. I decided to use a different route this time, for a change in pace. A little something different from the normal path I walk. This part of town was hit the worst. Only a few houses still stand and none of them are occupied. It truly is a sad sight to see. Then again, it's really the only sight I see. The only sight I'll ever see. Or so I thought. I was stopped by something unusual. A stray cardboard box in the middle of the sidewalk. Now, living in this kind of area, I see trash all the time. Boxes, McDonald's cups, and plastic bags litter the streets and empty fields. but rarely will I see a cardboard box that isn't crushed in one way or another. I noticed this particular box because it happened to be in a way. During my younger years, I tried doing what I could for the community. I'd pick up trash when I saw it. I'd attempt to help my neighbors. It was a losing battle. Nowadays, I'd given up any hope of cleaning this city, much less this neighborhood. Now we'll just pass the trash by, letting it blow away in the breeze or sit there and decompose. I let what's left of the people do their own things, since most of them don't care about anything other than themselves. Why should I be any different? I walked past the box, barely giving it a glance. Nothing about it caught my attention right away. I continued on, my home not far away now. Upon arriving, I sat down and played some games, attempting to push the box out of my mind. I had little luck, as the box somehow managed to push its way back in. Time crept on by, and I soon found myself wanting to go for another walk. I left the house and started down my usual route when I stopped. What was it about that box that made it stick out in my mind? I turned around, starting down the path I had taken to get home. The path I only walk once in a blue moon. Curiosity got the best of me. I wanted some closure. Within minutes, I found it still sitting there, sad and alone among the broken concrete and overgrown grass. It didn't move. It didn't stand out as if it were special. It was an ordinary brown cardboard box. I didn't want to say I came out here for nothing, so I walked closer for it. As I drew closer, however, I began to notice something inside. It was brightly colored. Multiple colors, in fact. It was quite small, maybe the size of a few-month-old Labrador puppy. I stopped beside the box and looked down at the colorful blob inside. This is where I currently stand, looking into the box at a small something. No, I know exactly what it is, but my brain isn't allowing me to fully realize it just yet. At first, I wanted to say it's simply a toy left to die along with all the other things in this block, but then I saw it breathing. In fact, it appears to be sleeping. My hands are sweating, my breath erratic, and I'm blinking my eyes, trying to refresh my vision. Each time, the image stays the same. Inside is a sleeping filly rainbow dash. I kneel down, trying to get a closer look into the box. I can't believe what I'm seeing. This is not a physical, mental, or extraterrestrial way this could be here. How could she be here in my gloomy, dark, and horrid world? I examine the box further, and on the side in simple pen says, "Give to good home." My first thought that runs through my mind, besides the initial Philly Rainbow Dash in a box, is, who would give up Philly Rainbow Dash? My mind is now a mess of questions. How did she get here? Why is she here? Why is she a filly? Her flank is even the barren of her cutie mark, meaning she is indeed a filly. And as I stand to stretch my tired legs, I accidentally bump the side of the box with my foot. And the inevitable occurs. She wakes up. She looks around, rubbing her face with her foreleg, trying to wake herself up. At first, she sees all the brown walls on the side of the box, but then she looks up to me. Those large black eyes, along with the rose-colored rim around them, drive my heart to, as the meme goes, explode twice. The sheer cuteness of it all drives me to kneel back down, and I can't hold back a smile. I haven't smiled like this in years, since the last time me and my parents went out to the only remaining park in the area. Her eyes continue to stare at me, and I stare back. I don't know what to say or what to do, but I must start somewhere. "Hi there," I speak, but she doesn't respond. What are you doing out here?" She looks around, then back at me. The more I study her, the more I realize she is really young, years younger than her filly appearance in episode 23. She might not even be able to talk yet, that is, if she even can talk in my world. The fact that she is even existing right now has me reeling in confusion. I return my attention back to her. I notice a small shiver of her body. The fall season is here, and it can get pretty cold, especially around mid-September. I'm not exactly sure how to tackle this situation. Do I take her home? Do I call someone? Who would I even call? I'm a closet brony, so none of my friends know about my love of the show. I can't take her to a shelter. That's a stupid thought in the first place. Not only would it be a horrible sight, she might be taken off to some lab and experimented on, or something just as equally horrible. I have only one choice. She shakes once more as the cold air reaches her coat. Her wings ruffle as she lays back down and hauls her legs closer to her body to keep warm. That's the final straw. I can't take it anymore. I take off my own jacket and reach down and pick her up. I get the initial response I expected. Fear. She begins to squirm around, unsure of what I'm really doing to her. She can't fly yet, but she still flutters her wings as in praying for a miracle to happen, that she does magically take flight. I set her into my jacket, wrap her up so her head is sticking out, and hold her in my arm. She continues to squirm, but then my body heat begins to finally seep through the thin jacket, and she settles down. It's all right. Let's get you somewhere warmer, huh? I smile again at her. She looks up to me with much confusion in her eyes as she tries to process what is happening. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. It's getting late and you'll freeze out here. I think she understands me, for after I say those words, her eyes return to their normal size, and she snuggles herself more comfortably inside my jacket. She squirms a little, trying to get into a more comfortable position. I can feel her hooves and wings poking me as she shifts. Then, to top it off, she rests her chin onto my arm and lets out a deep sigh, closing her eyes to drift off to sleep. My heart explodes for a third time. The entire walk back, I keep an eye out for other people who could pass by me. I want anyone else to see her. I have no way of knowing how they'd react. As usual, though, I don't see a single person. It's midnight by the time I get home. Fortunately for us both, I had turned on my porch light. Otherwise, I might have passed it. Being one of the few occupied homes on the block meant a lot of darkness. The city even stopped running power to streetlights, so that made it all the more difficult. I glanced down at the filly, who continued to sleep in the jacket as I carried her. She was no longer shivering, and felt quite warm. I walk up to my porch, careful not to make too much noise as I get my keys out, unlock the 2 deadbolts, the master lock, and finally the doorknob, and open my door. It is dark inside, due to me leaving while it was still light out. With a flick of the switch, the single bulb in the hallway comes to life, shedding some of the light into the living room. Most of the furnishings are my parents'. Then again, so is the house. I became the owner of it after their passing and have done what I can to keep it that way. Still with the filly Rainbow Dash in my arm, I walk into the living room. As I pass my family portrait, I greet it with hello Mom, hello Dad. I know they aren't there, but knowing that they love me, and knowing that I love them, helps me stay sane, and to keep going in my miserable life. As I enter the living room, I can feel stirring in my arms. She had woken up, most likely when I turned on the light, and is now getting antsy. With no idea what to do or how to tackle the situation, I set her down on the couch. Immediately, she jumps out of the jacket and looks around, already investigating her surroundings. I continue to watch her as she explores the couch, then continues to the coffee table. What are you doing here in my world? I didn't mean to ask that out loud, but sort of just happens every now and then. Only seeing my few friends once in a great while, I find myself talking to, well, myself, a lot. I don't own a pet, because that just means more money to dish on. I'm always struggling as it is. For my question, the only response is another blank look on her face. That tells me she has no clue either. Then again, what else should I expect from a filly that can't even talk yet? Are you lost? The moment the words left my mouth, her ears fall and she looks to the ground. Oh. The realization strikes that she has no clue what is going on, where she is, who I am, or anything else. She's beyond the word lost. She is misplaced. Well, until something happens, I guess you can stay with me. I see how she lifts her head up. Her ears start to erect once again and looks at me with worry. My words don't sound all that encouraging, so I throw on a smile as I speak. Don't worry, I'm sure whatever you brought were you here will fix itself within time. We just gotta wait. Is that alright? I'm not sure why I asked that, but it seems to do the trick. Her ears perk right up, and she smiles. The next few hours are spent giving her the grand tour of my house. Nothing amazing to see, and I avoid taking her to my bedroom out of fear that the large amount of dirty clothes would swallow her up. Afterwards, I give her something to eat. I break up some small carrots, and amazingly, I discover she has some teeth. Since she is still a filly, I wasn't sure if she could eat solid food such as carrots yet. Then again, she is from a cartoon, so I don't know what is correct for her anyway. Satisfied with the food, she finds a comfy spot in my father's recliner and sits. I don't mind. It's not like I sit in it. I was never allowed to when he was alive, so why should that change after his passing? It's his chair. But I'm not going to be mean to the filly for not knowing that, so I let her sit wherever she is most comfortable. I also give her a small blanket to wrap herself in, due to my house's current temperature. It's not as cold as it is outside, but my furnace has had problems since before my parents' passing. There was a trick to fixing it, but that died along with my father. I must have fallen asleep at some point. I honestly expected myself to be wide awake due to such an interesting event, but after long hours at work and staying up to take care of Dash, my body had other plans. I'm not sure how long I was out before I awoke, but it doesn't matter. As I close my eyes, I feel something against my side. I look, and sleeping beside me is a small cyan filly, her rainbow mane and tail still, her head resting on the inside of my elbow. I know the meme gets old, but I must say it. My heart exploded again. Laying there, sleeping and curled beside me, smiling ear to ear. Her gentle breaths are barely heard. The hairs on her mane tickle my arm, and I hold back any movement to itch. The warmth of her body against my stomach warms my already weak heart. Though a few months isn't a long time, it's how long I've wanted a moment like this. My own little pony, a rainbow Dash plushie to sleep with and hold tight. And I have a real rainbow Dash, a filly, sleeping at my side, content as though she's known me since birth. Right now, there is nothing else that matters to me. My despair, my sore feet, and painful heart all go unnoticed, as nothing else can come remotely close to the feeling I have right now. This joy I am experiencing at this moment as I lay awake on my couch. She is here. She is real. Right now, she is my little pony. She is my little Dashie. Timeskip. It has only been 4 months since I brought the young Rainbow Dash into my house. I've done what little research I could on the matter, but I have come to no conclusions. I have no idea why she is here, and quite frankly, I don't even care anymore. These few months with her have been the most amazing time with my life. She's opened my heart up to love and joy, and among other things. Right now, she sits next to me on the couch as I watch television. She seems to enjoy the morning cartoons on the local station, and I myself have come to enjoy them. She acts much like a young child would. Then again, why wouldn't she? Another amazing feat is that she has been learning to talk. I'm not much of a teacher, or for that matter a parent, but I'm doing my best to help her to learn to speak and read. I don't know how or even where to begin to attempt in teaching her to write. From the show, they do it with their mouths, but I will let that go for now. Once she's a little older, if I even have her that long, I'll do what I can to teach her. It used to be the year would go by slowly. I would look forward to the new year in hopes of getting a fresh start. Now, though, I feel as if this year went by a little too quickly for me. I decided, since I have no knowledge of her actual birth date, to make the day I found her her birthday. September the 17th. Oddly enough, that's the very same date that the second season of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic aired last year. I quit watching the show after Dashie came into my life. There was no reason for me to continue, and honestly, I don't have much time to myself anymore. It would be hard to hide me watching the show, and even harder to explain the situation if she was to ever see it, especially at her current age. She knew her name was Rainbow Dash, but I have now come to calling her Pinky's pet name of Dashie. She's no problem with it. She can fully communicate with me now, as well as read English, and she's even started to learn how to write with, you guessed it, her mouth. I have tried to invent some devices for her hoof so that she could write, but it seems writing with her mouth is more natural than moving her hoof around. One thing that troubles me with her, every day she sits at a window, looking outside. I'm not worried about her being seen by passersby, as I'm in a dead-end street, so that's the least of my worries. Still, though, she doesn't say anything to me yet. I can see the hunger for fresh air in her eyes. I can't keep her in here for her entire life. I'm talking like she is going to be here forever. That isn't true. One day, someday, she will return home. Whether it'll be a simple poof and she's gone, or through some magical spell and Twilight shows up and takes her home to fix everything. In my heart, I hope that never happens. In my head, I know it will. It's just a matter of when. I do hope to get her outside soon. I've been checking with abandoned lots and former parks on my walks to and from work, seeing where the best location would be to take her to. Oddly enough, it seems that the park I played at growing up is the best option. That shall be it then. I shall take her to the park. How will I get her there? She's still relatively small, so she can be hidden inside a jacket or something. Tomorrow is supposed to be a nice day, anyway. She did it. After 2 years in my care and having absolutely no knowledge of flight myself, I helped her learn to fly. She'd gotten quite big in only a couple of years, and it was hard to getting her to hide when we walked to the park. I got so desperate to keep her hidden, I brought a dog costume for her to put on so that she could walk there unnoticed. She was not happy. So I got some books from the library and read up on teaching birds to fly. I would have looked it on the internet, but I fear she would become curious of it herself. There are a lot of horrors on the internet, and she's not ready for it. In hindsight, it's bad enough she's experiencing television, but she's come to enjoy SpongeBob and NASCAR too much for me to take away from her. Back to the flying. I've been taking her to that old park for weeks, in hopes I could help her learn how to fly. There is a large tree there with branches sticking out over a sandbox, the perfect spot for her to practice. If she falls and I can't catch her, at least she'll have something remotely soft to land on. She fell a lot. I knew she would fall a lot. I made scrapes, cuts, and bruises towards her goal. But finally, after many weeks of work, she flew. It was only a short distance, about 50 feet, but she still did it. She's a little scraped up, but she's beaming with pride. Maybe now she could fly overhead, so that the few people on the ground don't notice her. I'll have to see if she can manipulate clouds like she could in the show. It would make it much easier to take her places. Then she can hide on a cloud as we go to the park. Another thing that has been brought to my attention, she asked me about having her own room. I got thinking, and realized the house does have a spare bedroom, though my parents had filled it with my old school stuff from my younger years, as well as several of my old toys. She might enjoy them, though she is getting older. I'm not sure how entertaining they will be for her. If she has her own room, I can get her own things, so that she can feel somewhat normal. She's pretty smart for a filly and knows about the differences between our species, but she still knows nothing about her origin. She's not ready yet. The only thing I can do is keep her happy. I wish I had a way to buy her the things that she wants. If you had told me 4 years ago I'd be taking care of a cartoon rainbow colored pony, I'd call you insane. I probably am in all reality, but I don't care. I'm happy. She's happy. Today is a day for celebration. For today, my little Dashie got her cutie mark. I honestly don't know how to tackle that fact. She didn't even know what it was until I explained it to her. Now she's even more ecstatic than before. It was a normal park outing, but this time she decided she wanted to see how high she could get. I had limited her to how high she could fly, but honestly, I can't do anything about what she does up there. I can't fly, so the most I could tell her is to be careful. Somewhere, she got in her head just to see how fast she could fly. Probably due to her being a NASCAR and, well, general racing fan. For some time, she was trying to make up tricks and stunts of her own, giving them names. I just sat on a bench that I'd fixed up and cheered her on. No one was ever around anymore. In fact, on that block, I think the last person left over a year ago. There are rumors the entire area is going to be brought out by some company, however, and all this turned into a large manufacturing area. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's not important now. Right now, I'm so overcome with joy that my Dashie knows her place. Granted, this isn't her world. She is still the same Rainbow Dash from the show. Regardless of how I raised her, she has the same spunk and attitude from the show. And now, she has her cutie mark. Anyway, she climbed to quite a height in an attempt to gain speed from a fall. All the right things factored for her. How she positioned herself, her mental focus, and possibly me on the ground watching and cheering her on. But she did it. She broke the sound barrier and created a sonic rain boom overhead. Now I didn't even imagine it was possible to accomplish such a feat in my world. I knew you could break the sound barrier, but actually do the rainbow part too? My mind is blown. So the initial explosion brought upon many broken windows and set off car alarms in the next county. I quickly rounded her up and rushed home before anyone could arrive at the park. I was lucky none of my windows were broken. The rest of the day we spent celebrating. It just so happened today was her 4th birthday. I have no way of knowing how old she actually was when I got her, so I just started over. I would have brought her a cake, but due to the boom, all the businesses were closed and needed new windows. So we made a cake on our own. Apparently the fanfiction writers got it right. She can't bake at all. Granted, I'm not the best myself, but it was still a mess. But we had fun. She enjoyed herself, and she is happy. Therefore, I am happy. Though that was her highlight of the day, mine was just moments ago. She has now come accustomed to sleeping in her own room versus with me out on the couch. I actually stopped sleeping in my room and kept her company in the living room until recently. Now I can sleep in my own bed once more, but I keep my door unlocked, so if she needs me, she can get me. I just tucked her into bed and told her goodnight when she said it. Good night, Daddy. I love you. I hadn't been on the internet in, 3 years now? I didn't know how the My Little Pony thing online is doing or what memes are still alive or not, but damn it all, I'm gonna say it because it's true. My heart exploded twice. For the first time, not only did she call me Daddy, which she has done on occasion, but she even said, I love you. For a moment, I didn't know what to say or do. I had never been in this sort of situation before, but I remember what my mother and father used to do. So I leaned down and kissed her on the forehead, told her the same thing. Good night, my little Dashie. I love you too. She smiled at me, then closed her eyes to sleep. I walked out, turned off her light, made sure a SpongeBob nightlight was on, of course, closed the door, and sat down on the couch. I haven't moved for an hour now, so I'm still lost in thought. The few times she had called me Daddy, I didn't think anything of it. I could picture why she called me that. Being with her made me being with her so much made me accept it as part of me taking care of her. But tonight, when she said those three words, the realization finally sunk into my heart. I am her daddy. She considers me her daddy, and quite frankly, I consider her my daughter. Even though we are of totally different species, I still love her with all my heart, and it has taken her to speak those words for me to finally realize that. I think I have finally done it. I have broken my hard shell that I formed when my parents died. I've let a sweet little filly into my life. I gave her a home to live in, food to eat, and now a daddy to love. She has given me hope, love, compassion, and now something I thought I'd never utter, a daughter. I still speculate when the time is going to arise that she goes back to Equestria, and each day it gets harder for me to imagine when that will actually happen. I just hope that she never forgets me, because I will never forget her. I believe Dashie is at her full size. Rounding in at about 3 feet tall, she's fully grown. Though she's still only 10 years old according to my math, I believe she's actually more along the lines of 14 or 15 possibly in actual years. So we celebrate 5 missed birthday and officially moving day. That's right, moving day. We moved from my parents' house thanks to me finally saving up enough money, plus getting lucky at a casino. We bought a nice house 100 miles away from the city. It's got a lot of open land, and there isn't another house within 5 miles. And it's just me and her. Now she can fly around all she wants whenever she wants. She is truly happy. Though she does miss the old park. It's gone now, along with anything else left in the area. A large business bought up all the land, flattened it, and built a large factory there. It was an amazing boom to the economy, and people are starting to build homes again. I'm glad, but it just wasn't for us. The amount of people would hinder her going outside, and I'm gonna force her to stay inside all day unless it's raining out. I've gotten a new job, one that pays much more than my old one. Dashie even talked about getting a job, but she remembered what I told her. The look on her face was heartbreaking. We were enjoying a cake we made, which, I must add, we had improved upon our skill, when she brought it up. I jokingly said she can't due to her being a pony, and I laughed. She remained silent. My god, I'm horrible. I just laughed because my daughter is different. I apologized for hours, and even though she says she understands, I know she is still hurt. I'm lucky I have a way to fix this. Due to the sheer size of the property, it involves a lot of cutting grass. Tomorrow, I will modify a lawnmower for her to use so that she can have a job. I'll even pay her so that she can buy her own stuff if she wants, though I'd have to get it for her. Still, she can say she actually worked for something. According to the show, she was a weather pony, and I don't have her mess with Mother Nature unless it's a dire emergency. So there isn't really any job to be had there. I still can't believe I've had her for 10 years now. My god, time goes so fast. I wish it would slow down so that I could have more time with her. I don't know when, but I have the sudden feeling our time together is running out. All this has been too good to be true. Today has been the worst time of my life. Even more than when my parents died. Due to events I could not prepare for, Dashie found out the truth before I could tell her myself. She knows what she is, a made-up cartoon character from a kid's television show. She is mad, no, upset beyond all thought. She had locked herself in her room, but I know my daughter. She didn't stay in there long. She opened her window and flew off, probably into a tree to sulk in her sorrow. I'm a monster. I should have told her sooner, I just wasn't sure when it would be the right time. Now we are both suffering for my carelessness. I thought getting cable would be a good thing, give her some more shows to watch. But what I didn't realize was we got the hub station. I wasn't even aware it was still up, and to find my surprise, this show My Little Pony is even still airing. It stopped at 8 seasons, but still it was repeated. I remember walking in for some groceries, set them in the kitchen, and walked into the living room. When I saw it, yay, she did it! Fluttershy had screamed, jumping with joy as Applejack, Twilight, and Pinkie Pie all sat on the clouds with dumbfounded looks on their faces. My heart sank. I knew this episode. I remember this episode. Even after seeing nothing for 12 years, I still remember that damn episode. In that episode, Rainbow Dash performs the Sonic Rain Boom, much like how my Dashie had years ago. At the time, I was still holding my keys. I dropped them. They clanged on the wood floor. If she didn't know I was home before, she knew now. How long? Dashie asked me, no emotion in her voice. I. How long have you known about this? I. Dashie turned to look at me. She'd been crying, and her mane was even in worse shape than normal. How long have you known about this? I couldn't help it. A tear ran to my cheek as she yelled at me. This was the first time in all these years that she had raised her voice at me, and I deserved every bit of it. So I sat down, turned off the television, and told her everything. Told her about the show, about finding her, and answered any other questions she had for me. There were a lot. Most of them stemmed from the show, to which I simply told her what I truly believed. That though she's the Rainbow Dash from the show, that she herself is a different pony from the cartoon. I tried to explain to her, but her bullheadedness took over as she continued to lash at me. I took it all. I deserved it all. I've been keeping that horrible secret from her for far too long. She's now a fully grown mare, capable of taking care of herself if she were in Equestria. Here I still treat her like she was my little filly. It's been wrong of me, but I couldn't help it. I didn't want this to ever happen, but I knew it would. I should have done what was right, but I didn't. It was only a matter of time before she found out and she knew she was different. After our argument, she flew upstairs into our bedroom and slammed the door shut. I checked on her an hour later, and no response told me she had flown off. I can only hope that she comes back, or at least, if she doesn't, she stays away from other people. If anything, I hope some sort of portal opens up and she goes back to her world and never has to think of me again. All I can say at this point is that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been 3 days since Dashie left. The night of her departure, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went for a walk. I wasn't sure where I was going or how long I walked, but that's what I did. I walked. Now 3 days later, I'm finding myself out here walking once again. I've been out here for roughly 3 hours, and though it was only 5 in the afternoon, it was growing dark. A storm is brewing, and soon I'll be getting hit by the brunt of it. I turn around to begin my walk home, though I don't rush. My energy these past few days has been non-existent, and I've barely eaten anything more than some toast. I feel so lost. I feel so lost as I walk through the woods that surround my home. No, our home. It is as much hers as it is mine, and nothing will change that. The rain has begun, but I do not quicken my pace. I just walk back, much like I had done so long ago. The distant memories of all my pain and sorrow before Dashie began to seep back into my mind. I haven't had these thoughts in years. The pats of water on the tree leaves help keep me distracted. It's a peaceful sound, one you would never hear in the city. The rain is picking up now as my shirt is soaking wet. I'm sure I will be sick tomorrow morning, but I don't care. I've been sick for 3 days now, a mental illness that has been tearing me apart. My daughter is somewhere out there hurting, needing some comfort and warmth in this rain. I wish it could be there for her, even though she may not want me to. She may not ever want to see me again from how she acted. I don't blame her. It must be such a horrible thing finding out your past like that. I can't even imagine what it would be like. I know Dashie is a strong mare and she can pull through, but I also know she pulls a grudge at times. I'm not sure that even if she did come back, she would ever forgive me. Or more importantly, if I could ever forgive myself. It's now pouring out here. The tree canopies are barely holding back the torrential rain as I'm hammered by the water droplets. I stop to look around and find my bearings to return home. I'm not lost. Most of this area is easy to traverse once you get used to it. It's just that I'm also looking for Dashie as I walk. It's the reason I'm walking in the forest in the first place. I press on, keeping a steady pace through the rain. Suddenly I spy a large, thick tree. Its stature sticks out among the rest, and from looking at the barely wet grass underneath, I can tell its many branches are holding back even this hard rain. I need to take a break, so I walk under the tree and sit down. The grass is barely wet, with only a few small droplets making their way through. This is the kind of tree I imagined Dashie would hide under in this rain. I wish it to be true, but I saw no sign of her as I approached. I close my eyes and lean against the tree hulk as I think about my life, our life, together as father and daughter. We've grown so much as a family and have been fortunate enough to have very few fights, none of them as heartbreaking as the one 3 days ago. I feel a tear running down my cheek as I imagine Dashie's face again. The anger in her eyes mixed with the confusion that just tears me apart. I want so badly to make things right or to go back in time and stop it from happening, but I can't do either of those. What's done is done. I'm so sorry. I speak out loud, not caring for no one is listening. I'm alone in these woods, besides the wildlife. In this rain, they are hiding as well, and aren't the ones that are far from a being such as I. I'm just so sorry, Dashie. I continue to cry as I keep my eyes closed and leaning against the tree. The rain continues to pour around me, an occasional droplet hits my head, but I don't care. Crack. I open my eyes from the sun's sound and look to my left. I'm shocked at what I see before me. Looking at me with teary eyes herself, Dashie, my little Dashie, covered in burrs and tree sap along her mane and tail, is standing a couple feet from me. She is wet, with both rain and tears. I hadn't heard her approach. Then again, being a Pegasus, she is very quiet and light on her hooves. She doesn't speak and instead walks over to me, not caring what noises she makes under her hooves. I don't move. I just sit on the ground and watch with my own wet eyes. She looks so horrible and yet so beautiful at the same time. Her coat would need a good cleaning, but that was the least of my worries. Without a word, she sits next to me, not making eye contact as she looks off into the woods. I can only look at her, wishing to hug her tightly and never let her go again, but I hold back, knowing that would be too sudden. Finally, she is the first to speak. I heard you. Her voice got quiet as she whispered, and I'm sorry too. I simply smiled through my tears. Her stubborn attitude was still showing that she had always had difficulties apologizing. Dashie, you have nothing to be sorry about. It's my fault. Simple as that. Seems my point doesn't get across as she finally looks at me with a sorrowful face. Dad, do you still love me? Now is the time to act. I reach over and grab her, holding her in a tight hug. Of course, Dashie. I've always loved you. I'll still love you, no matter what. Not even a small fight such as ours could ever change that. She returns the hug, and we sit there and cry together. We continue to apologize, for me for the truth and for her for raising a voice and storming out. After some time, the rain subsides while we remain under the tree. Dad? Can we go home? I need a shower, bad. I let out a chuckle, and she too laughs as I stand. We make our trip back home. She's smiling again. I am too. I've been giving it some thought, and I think I shall give her a birthday present a little early. A ticket to the Indy 500. Yes, I'm taking her to the Indy 500. She can simply sit in some clouds and watch while I'm in the stands. I didn't have to get her a ticket, but she needs some sort of reminder of her visit. I'm sure she will have a blast, and though I don't expect this to make everything right, I can only hope it cheers her up some. With some time, I'm sure she will relax and settle down about her being in the cartoon. She's a smart mare and knows she is real, not that made-up pony from a cartoon. I can only help push her to believing that, and hope she does the same to me. Alright. There's a point in every parent's life where they must let their child go. Whether it be for the better or for the worst, it must happen at some point. And I'll sit here in my living room by myself, sulking over photographs of the distant memories of me and Dashie. On her 20th birthday, I had planned a special outing to go see a flight show. As we prepared to leave, There was a knocking at the door. Never in the years we have lived there had anyone knocked at the door. Hell, we haven't even made arrangements if someone did show up. I simply told her to go to her room while I took care of it. Once I heard the door shut, calmly and collectively I asked who was knocking, expecting some stranger possibly lost on his or her travels. A female voice spoke in such an elegant yet attention-grabbing tone that I felt myself listening to her with the uttermost attention. She asked if she may come in, a request I normally refuse within a heartbeat, and yet something about her voice was reminiscent. Maybe I couldn't help but walk over and open the door. When I first saw the figure standing on my porch, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or hallucinating. Standing there was the radiant and majestic Princess Celestia. I was at a loss of words, fighting both emotions of brony excitement and which I had only felt when I first found Dashie, and emotions of sorrow for what I knew this meant. She stood there another second looking at me. We matched each other in eye level, her body being the size of a nearly fully grown horse. I stepped back and allowed her to enter. What caught me off guard next were the other 5 ponies that followed suit. First, Twilight Sparkle, and then the rest of the game. Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, and lastly Pinkie Pie bounced in. Ooh, so this is what an alien house looks like on the... My, you have a kitchen! I'm starving! Are you starving? Gonna make up some... She was stopped by Applejack's hoof. Easy there, Sugar Cube. We're just here for Rainbow, so we ain't got no time for any eating. Applejack's stomach growled. No matter how hungry we are. I still wasn't sure how to completely react to all this, but not wanting to be rude, I offered some leftovers. We have some leftovers from dinner last night. You're more than welcome to some. Pinkie took that as an okay and ran into the kitchen with much vigor. It seemed I did not even need to tell her where anything was. She instantly knew where everything was placed. Factor it to either dumb luck or simply being Pinkie Pie. I chose the latter. I'll go keep an eye out for her, Applejack said, wanting to join the hyper pony. As she passed, she tipped her hat at me. I was finding it odd the ponies were not more hesitant around creatures such as me. Then again, the same could be said for myself. But having Dashie for 15 years, I grew used to having such a thing around me. Now I have 5 older-sized pony and a full-sized goddess looking at me with the same amount of curiosity that I held for them. There was a moment of silence as I watched the 2 mares enter my kitchen and began to rummage through the fridge. I'm quite surprised, Celestia began. I had expected a little more resistance to us entering. Why? I know who you all are. Celestial nodded. So you do know then? That you were fictional characters from a children's TV show? Then, yes. Otherwise, why you're all here, I've got no clue. The last part, I lied, hoping to keep my mind at ease. I knew the reason, but I wanted to ignore it. Oh, I think you do know. My heart fell into the pits of my stomach. I did know, and she was straight to the point about it. During all these years, I had anticipated this moment, but as time drug on, that thought slowly as time drug on, that thought slowly dispelled until it was nothing more than a minor nip in my mind. That's when it always happens, when everything is finally perfect and you don't have to worry anymore. Excuse me, sir? Twilight began. But from what we could figure out, Rainbow Dash should be here. Is she? I looked at the purple mare. I wanted to tell her no, but I knew it was fruitless. She's upstairs in her room. In her room? Rarity asked, surprised. Yes, Dashie is in her room. I wasn't sure who was knocking. I didn't want her to be spotted. Dashie? My, you're that friendly with her already? Rarity continued. I wanted to punch that pony so hard right then. How she responded insulted me. Friendly? That's not even the beginning of it. And I should be asking you ponies as to what the hell you did. Celestial raised an eyebrow, taken back by the change in my tone. You see my student. I know who she is. Get to the chase. I was very short with her. As furious as I wanted to know why they'd send Dashie as affiliate to some other world. Twilight bit her lip as her teacher continued. Yes, of course. She was working a spell to help the weather team with some storm development. Well, they made slightly too large of a storm, and when Twilight used her magic to try and dispel it, it shot a lightning bolt meeting her magic. Rainbow Dash was unfortunate enough to be within reach of the blast, and it engulfed her and sent her to, well, here. So we are here to retrieve her. Simple enough, I'd imagine. Before I could answer, Dashie called from her bedroom. Dad, is everything alright? The second my heart stopped beating. That second, my heart stopped beating as I looked from pony to pony. Everyone's face was in pure shock and confusion. They recognized the voice of their Rainbow Dash, but she said, Dad. Excuse me, Sugar Cube. Applejack started returning from the kitchen. Did you just hear Rainbow call you Dad? Before I could answer, Celestia started up again. Do you care to explain? I was so lost. So many things were running through my mind at once. There was only one thing I could do, and I had to do, but I knew I wouldn't like it. Go into the living room and make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right down with her. I didn't allow a response. I turned around and walked up the stairs slowly. Dad? Yeah, Dashie, I'm coming up. I looked back down at the group of ponies as they watched me ascend. We need to talk. And so that's what I did. I told her who was down there and that they were there to take her back. She had seen the cartoon every so often after some time. I found the wacky adventures entertaining. She had given up any thought that the Rainbow Dash in the show was her and only viewed it as another cartoon. As I talked to her and she explained to me that these ponies she didn't believe and were downstairs, she brushed me off with some laughs. She didn't believe me and thought I was just playing some joke at her, so I took her down to the living room. Dashie! Pinky shouted, jumping onto her cyan Fred. Dashie was quick to shove the pink pony off. Hey, get away from me! She was taken aback by the sudden amount of ponies filling out her living room. They all looked to her with some worried expressions why she shoved her closest friend away. Pinky's concave mane went straight as she looked in confusion. You don't recognize me, do you? No, or any of you. Dashie continued. It hurt me in so many ways. I knew these were her friends, but so many things have happened differently than she didn't know the truth fully, and neither did they, so I had to explain to them. I started. Dashie, take a seat, please, so I can talk to them. She did just that in her recliner. The entire time, she looked at all the ponies who occupied the couches and sent a rug into the fireplace. It was time, but first I had to start with a question. How long ago was she sent over here? The question caught them off guard, but Twilight cleared her throat as she spoke. About 15 days ago. Why? I was speechless. 15 days ago? Shit, she's been with me for 15 years. That means a day in their world meant a year here. Well, it's been a lot more time than that here. How long? Twilight asked. 15 years. All the ponies, besides Celestia, had their mouths agape. Then don't explain why she don't know us, Applejack said. Well, there's the thing. When I found her, she was a filly. Come again? From my math, she was no older than 4 or 5 years old. Now Celestia looked surprised. You mean to tell us you've been taking care of Rainbow Dash for 15 years? Since she was a small filly? She asked. I simply nodded and looked over to Dashie, who wore an expressionless look on her face. Well, she is... I started, but I couldn't hold back my fear anymore. I know it's not true. God, I wish it was, but... Go on. Okay. I understand that Dad now makes sense. Celestia cut me off, holding a stern look about her face. She was thinking, trying to piece in her mind what had possibly happened. I chalked it up to the magic being unstable, possibly reverting her in age. For a few moments it was quiet, besides the breathing of 7 ponies and myself. Finally, it was Dashie who broke the silence. So, what's supposed to happen now? I looked to the princess, trying to read her face. No matter how good I had gotten at reading Dashie's face, Princess Celestia had the best poker face I'd ever seen. I had no clue what she was thinking, feeling at this moment. Well, it's quite simple, Twilight. Celestia looked to her pupil, who instantly perked up hearing her name. Do you still remember the memory cell from the Discord incident? Twilight. Fuck. I think he thinks it's good. Twitter simply nodded. Fuck. Twilight simply nodded as she stood up from the couch and hopped onto the floor. I knew what was going on or what Celestia had in mind. She wanted Dashie to either erase her memories and start from anew. Or possibly, I hope she just simply wanted to give Dashie her memories of their friendships and time in Ponyville. I wasn't sure what to do. I felt it was right. I knew it was right and needed to be done. I had been telling myself for 15 years to wait for that moment, but there was something I needed to say before it happened. These ponies were going to take my Dashie away, and I had some words to speak before that happened. No, wait, please, I started. Twilight stopped and looked at the sunglasses. Just give me a moment with her, please. All I ask, since this is the last time we'll see each other. I had given up holding back my tears, and at this point was openly crying. The ponies could tell I was hurting, and Dash didn't look to be faring too well either. So figuring it wasn't good to prolong the inevitable, I walked to the chair Dashie sat and knelt down to her to meet her at eye level, and I spoke. Dashie, my little Dashie, I love you with all my heart. You have done wonders to open me up from the man I once was. You, I had to pause for a moment to settle down. You had brought me so much joy in my life that I can't possibly ever thank you for. At this point, Dashie too had begun to cry. That only made it worse for me. These 15 years we've had together, talking, playing, flying, all those have been so special to me. I just want you to know that I will forever love you. It doesn't matter if we aren't biologically related or of different worlds. I don't care what you may ever think of me or if you ever even remember me, but right now, you being my Dashie, I want you. I poked her on the chest to physically show I was talking to her. To know the fact, if there is ever a problem that happens and you need me, don't hesitate to find a way to get to me, okay? I tried to laugh, passing off the last part as a joke. It worked only slightly, as we both continued to cry. I could also hear some sniffling from behind me. I could only picture Pinkie Pie crying like she had at the end of the second episode in Season 2, after Luna and Celestia had been reunited. Do I have to go, Daddy? It had been a few years since she had actually called me Daddy. Most of the times it was simply Dad or Pops. It felt good, knowing she still cared for me enough to call me Daddy, much like the first time she had said it to me, so many years ago. I simply nodded my head as I stood back up. Before I could fully grasp my balance, she jumped onto me and hugged me tight. I could feel her tears at the back of my neck, and I returned to the embrace. It's your actual home, Dashie. You don't belong here. You just need to go back where you belong. I belong here with you. It hurt so much to say, but I had to keep her convinced this was the right thing to do. No, you don't. You are so limited here. You're only able to fly around the house. You have no friends or other ponies to relate to. I was only taking care of you until this time would come, but I never thought it would be this painful. I remained quiet for a few more minutes as we held each other tight. She didn't fight back or want to resist what was happening, which told me she knew as well what must be done. I love you, Daddy. And I love you too, my little Dashie. We separated as she lowered herself to the ground. At this point, all the other ponies had tears flowing, even the goddess herself. She had seemed quite thinking of the Joker more. Fuck. She had creamed so... Why'd they have the Joker mart? She seemed quite smug about knowing what had happened, the time difference and such, but it was evidence that the age difference was a shock. She likely expected to find a 35-year-old Rainbow Dash, but instead found my 20-year-old Dashie. Twilight stepped much closer, Rainbow Dash, sniffling once... Fucking Voldemort! Jokermort, that's fucking... Twilight stepped closer to Rainbow Dash, sniffling once before her horn glowed. I knew what was coming. It hurt so much, but I knew it was right. It was what had to happen for her friends, and in a twisted way for me. Now I could actually see she was going home. It would be around her friends, and she could fly wherever and whenever she wanted to, without any limitations. She could enjoy friends' company once more. Wait, I looked at the floor to Dashie as he backed away from Twilight. Before I go, I want to get something. Before any pony or myself could protest, she flew up to her room. She was quick and returned with a shoebox in her front hooves. I wasn't sure if she would be allowed to take anything back with her and half expected the princess to protest, but she remained quiet, allowing Dashie to quickly write down on a piece of paper and set it on the coffee table. She looked back to me, still crying, but with a smile on her face. I knew she had realized this was how it must end, and I knew that as well. The box, for my guessing, was probably her most cherished items that she kept for her if she had to leave. Though it hurt me thinking about it, I hoped she had a picture of us. Then again, I also hoped not, for she would be forced to remember me in a world away. That would hurt just as much as everything else. I'm so sorry, Rainbow Dash, Twilight started. I honestly wish there was another way to do this. I wish I didn't have to do this, but can't he come with me? The stuttering in her voice told me she was simply speaking her mind, not actually asking a question. Violet shook her head, unable to keep eye contact with her friend as she cried before her. Rainbow Dash, Princess Celestia started. He cannot join you in our world, much like how you cannot stay in his. This was all never meant to be, and the world around us was not made to house you, and yet. Celestia looked to me, smiling, and then began to look around our living room, all the photos of us together, all our knickknacks and belongings strewn around the world. And yet something beautiful happened here, something I cannot explain in full. When I realized where you ended up, I expected the worst. I figured you to be this ruined, tattered, and tarnished from this world's cruelty, but now I see that's quite the opposite. That here, that this man has raised you, show me you were in good hooves, or hands, as it were. Dashie sniffed once again, beginning to calm down as Celestia's words sunk in. Celestia then returned to looking at me, still smiling. I cannot speak for you, but from what I see in front of me, the amount of love you both share and have shared together tells me that you raised her as she was your own. Even with the obvious differences, you still raised her unbiased as to her species, her origins. You raised her as your daughter, which only makes this entire ordeal so much worse. I absorbed her words as well as the other ponies in the room. So I must say to you, dear sir, please do not hold my student accountable for this. It was never her nor any any pony else's intentions to cause this much hurt to either of you. If you must blame somebody, I ask you to blame me. I am the one who helped bring them here to take Rainbow Dash back to her home, away from here. I just couldn't look at any of them, my heavy breathing breaking down with sobs. My mind was just going on her own, thinking back at all the things Dashie and I did together. I took a deep breath as I spoke. Just how could I blame some pony for sending Rainbow Dash here? I sniffled, then cleared my throat as I continued. I nearly choked up as I searched for the words to express myself. These have been the best 15 years of my life, so if anything, I feel quite the opposite. I wish to thank you, Twilight, and the rest of you. Thank you for what you did, though not intentional. Thank you for all that came out of this, and thank you for all the years, my life, my love with Dashie. I tried to smile at Twilight between the sobs, but she looked in the edge of tears herself, and could only look away before she cried herself. Celestia then stood from the rug that she laid on and walked over to me as I stood. No need for thanks, good sir. Instead, I wish to thank you for taking care of one of my little ponies. She would have never made it without someone much like yourself. Celestia closed her eyes and then leaned her horn towards me. I didn't move. I wasn't sure what was going on as she touched her horn to my head. I felt a sudden warmth rush through my body. She drew her horn away, still smiling as she stepped back. Thank you. Then another pony spoke up. Thank you, sir, Twilight added, finally able to speak through her tears. Thank ya, Applejack said. Thank you, darling, for taking care of our Rainbow Dash, Rarity spoke. Thank you, Fluttershy quietly said. Thanks, Pinkie shouted as she sprung up to me and hugged me. I couldn't help but laugh a little from her extrinsic attitude. Better yet, the rumors on the internet are true. Her mane did smell like cotton candy. I remained silent, and I looked back at Dashie, who wore a smile on her face. The ponies all returned to Dashie's as Twilight's horn began to glow once more. Are you ready now, Rainbow? Twilight asked again, returning to Dashie and starting her magic. She simply nodded as she closed her eyes and awaited the inevitable. It seemed time slowed down as Twilight's horn approached Dashie's forehead. My mind began forcing random memories of us together. I can vividly remember the splashing of the bathtub from bath times, before she showered herself. I can still taste our many failed attempts at baking and cooking in general. I still smell the outdoors from our times at the park where she was able to spread her wings. There were so many memories that I simply had shut my brain so that I could keep myself focused on Dashie. A single tear ran down her left cheek, as I could see her eyes moving under her lids. Her mind was doing the same thing as mine was, forcing our fondest memories all at once, for this would be the last time we ever saw each other. Finally, Twilight's horn had touched Dashie's forehead. There was a bright light, and when I could see again they were all gone. All the ponies had disappeared. Through my tears, I sighed in relief. It felt wrong, but also felt right. She was now the normal Rainbow Dash that belonged in Ponyville. I stood in the living room for several more minutes, just staring blankly at the empty floor that Dashie had been standing at just moments before. Then I looked around the room and took notice of surroundings. I noticed things were different. Pictures that once held image of me and Dashie no longer hung from the walls. Many of the random personal items of hers that were scattered around the living room were all gone as well. I was confused, so I ran up to her bedroom to look. When I opened the door, what I saw instead of her NASCAR and airshow posters mixed to her bed were other furnishings was a simple office. A cheap desk with a computer on it and an ugly-looking potted plant. It took me some time to digest what I was experiencing before I realized what must have happened. It made sense, but it still stung me in my heart. To make sure nothing happened between worlds, Celestia must have removed any existence of Dashie ever being with me. 15 years all down the drain as her existence was wiped from the planet. I felt as those years were not wasted, as though I couldn't remember her. And yet my memory still lingered of her. I could remember everything as if it were still as vivid as it happened. Then the thought clicked. Did she do something with her magic when she touched me with her horn? Did she protect my memory so that I would remember her? Had she done the same for Dashie? I walked back downstairs and into the living room while I thought. On the coffee table sat a book. I recognized it. It was my photo album. I sat on the couch, opened up the first page. There was my mother and father with me shortly after I was born. I continued to flip through them, looking at my past. There was a gap after my parents died, but I decided to keep my mother's dream going, and then I picked it back up, making false pictures of happy times and enjoying my life to stick into her book of memories. Then I opened up to a piece of paper. I picked it up and immediately recognized the handwriting, or more correct, mouth writing. I speculated this was what she had written before she left. Dad, for 15 years you took care of me. For 15 years you loved me, played with me, and made sure I enjoyed my life in a world not meant to house me. I'm not a man of many words, but even though I told you this in person, I felt you need a written version of this, so you know it was all real. I love you, Daddy. You helped shape me into the man I am now. I'm not sure of what is going to happen, but if I will remember any of this or not, but I want you to know that you did a darn good job of raising me, even if I was a bit stubborn at times and short with you during others. With Celestia's permission, I hope to allow you to keep our photos, our memories, with you, so that you will never forget. Again, I love you and thank you. Your little daughter always. Your little Dashie forever. Rainbow Dash. I set the note back into the page, flattening it with my hand as I felt the dry tear marks littering the paper. I read the note over and over again until I had it memorized. Then I turned the page and was greeted with Dashie's Philly smile. So now I sit here, looking through my photo album of our time together. Her first bath, her first words, her first drawing, even our first preened feather. All in this book of memories. Everything else in the house was gone, but what I had put into this book still remains. I don't dare ever change that either, but I will continue to add to it. And to show that those years with her helped not only shape herself, but also helped shape me as well. I'm a new man from what I was 15 years ago, changed, given another chance by sheer miracle of fortunate events that transpired from somewhere I can't even speculate. If I had never gone back and checked that box, if I had done something different than I had, could have only could have changed everything between us. I guess I'm lucky that it all worked out. I can gladly say I've achieved my parents' only wish, for me to be happy. Though I am saddened, I am still happy for the time I had with her. I now sit alone in this empty house, staring at my mother's rainbow picture with a smile plastered on my face. Every time I see it, I think of Dashie. I should be crying. I should feel horrible. I didn't want nothing but my daughter back. And yet, I feel relieved to know that everything is alright. She didn't run away or leave on bad terms. She is gone, home, to where she belongs, and is safe. I look down at my photo album, turning to the page of our most recent photo. The pages are blank. I still have a lot of life ahead of me, and I plan to make the best of it. For myself. For my little Dashie. The end. Presumably, this was written by the Joker Mort